Okay. Well, thank you all for being here.
Great. I hit the wrong button. And, okay, it's all heading towards April Fool's.
Everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight for tonight's city council meeting and work session. It's February 26th, 2024. And we will first get started with a roll call.
Ms. Causey. Here. Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Teresa Nielsen. Here. Matt Lehman.
Here.
Jazz Jones.
Here. And we're not expecting Councilor Crocker to be joining us this evening, and Councilor McMorrow, we suspect, will be here in just a couple minutes. But tonight on the agenda for the work session is a discussion about the strategic plan, a draft strategic plan, and a pre-budget discussion, which is an item that we have in our strategic plan that we're supposed to do annually. So what we'd like to do tonight, rather than going through this line by line, what we want to do is to get input from our counselors about what their big three priorities are, and just a brief pitch. These are things that may or may not have impacts to the city budget. Hold on for 1 second while Councilor McMorrow joins us. Greetings. Hello. Okay. We just started. So tonight, what we'd like to do is discuss the counselors' priorities for what they'd like to. Some of your top three priorities for the city. These are things that we may tackle in the next year, but may more likely not be focusing on the next year. Maybe it'll be something we do in the future, but these are our top three priorities. And so what we're hoping to do is that each counselor can speak to their priority and take a minute just as a pitch, basically, and go ahead and do that for each of your three. So you don't have to do the pitch if you don't want to, but it's certainly your option.
Can I alter that just a little bit?
You can.
I think it's what you're intending to say, but maybe not. You're not saying. This would be your kind of top three priorities that aren't currently listed in the strategic plan, recognizing that the strategic plan already has several priorities in there, most of which hopefully we're in favor of and still moving forward on. So it's not necessarily kind of your top three priorities, but it'd be three additional priorities that aren't currently in the strategic plan. The idea would be to have some uniform consensus, recognizing we can't do everything this year, but certainly over the next 5 years, we should try to be getting to something, things that are priorities of the council as a body. And so we want to have discussion in this work session about what are those priorities that aren't currently reflected in the strategic plan.
That sounds about what I meant.
You were right there. I knew what you meant. I was helping express it.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate it. So, anybody interested in hearing their thoughts?
I'm ready, I think.
What's your Nielsen?
Well, can I talk about something that I thought might want to be delayed on objective 1.2.2, the full utility rate study. It has down, I think, this soon. I thought we wouldn't be doing a utility rate study until after the water treatment plant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that's not going to be done prior to the water treatment plant being done.
Yeah, so the goal is still to have that water treatment plant completed this summer. So that would be something as soon as it was done, financing got figured out, we would start that. It'd still be this fiscal year, but not like this summer. It would be start at some time.
Thank you for clarifying.
In the fall or even winter of this year, but it'd still be this fiscal year.
And then we have another one. This is objective 2.2.1. It talks about town hall meetings with business owners. Would that be done post streetscape completion? That would be timing wise. I think it would be nice after having them endured streetscapes to have a chance to kind of be heard how we're going to promote new business for now that the streetscapes is done. So the timing in that, I'm not against that objective, I just think the timing should be appropriate with streetscapes. And new ideas. I didn't see anything that maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see anything on the planning and development of the 14th Street property. With streetscapes done and trying to beautify downtown, it seems like the appropriate time to kind of think about what we want to do on 14th and maybe get it on our strategic plan. If I missed it, I apologize, but I didn't see it on there for planning and development. And then another new idea, sorry, it's on my number 4.
Go ahead.
With growing housing and more families and working with the school district that I do and growing numbers of kids attending our schools, signifies to me that we have more children in Philomath and coming to Philomath. That being the case, I would like to see possibly the second playground at City Park being addressed. There's a back playground. Would that be the northeast corner?
Yep.
That really is in pretty dire straits. And I would like to see that maybe something addressed on that. Oh, sorry, Chelsea, go.
Oh, you're fine. I was just after you were done. I just wanted to add that the Park Advisory Board did talk about all the projects in the master plan. That's one of them. And their recommendation was to look at that and a number of other remaining projects on the master plan in January of 2025. So next year when they do their planning, the reason being that they have suggested, and I did ask Chris to add it to the capital improvement plan, to work on Triangle Park and kind of refreshing that and fixing some of the issues there next fiscal year. And then they were hoping it was higher up on the priority for them to look at that shelter number 2 playground, but they were asking if we could push that because we couldn't really afford to work on the projects next fiscal year.
So you said addressing that in 2025.
They wanted to look at it again with their next review of those plans, which they're looking at it might be December this year. We may look at it a little bit earlier. But I do know that was a higher priority for them, but they picked between Triangle Park or that second location. And the reason they said was that they felt like there's some really good play equipment there already. There's a lot of open space for people to do things. And so they felt like focusing on Triangle Park for that neighborhood first might be a better prioritization. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Great, thank you. And let me see one more thing. Also, we had a local gas tax. It was objective 3.5.2 was proposed, instigating a local gas. I think we should hold off on that with not consider that at the current economy and gas prices rising and such. So I would like to delay that.
You think it'd be worth having a conversation about it as a council, or
I'm willing to have a conversation. I think it's on the 24-25, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm cautionary. I work with several nonprofits in our county, and things are not getting easier for families. So, and gas costs are they are now. I don't know. I'm just hesitant.
Yeah, and well, let's go ahead and go through each person's priorities, and we can come back and discuss them. Next volunteer, Councilor Andrade.
Oh, I was specifically going to respond. I wasn't sure if we were responding first. But I guess on that note, my priorities are involve housing, as well as like finding more affordable ways to get more affordable housing in our community, and looking at the 2 properties that we have on Main Street, especially being on the Hope Board. Like it would be great to try to help facilitate that in some way. I'm also sorry. I am also interested in taking a look at. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll come back.
Any other volunteers? Councilor Kazi.
Well, my top priority, actually, before I go there, in light of the closure of the mill, I'm wondering if, as a council, we shouldn't take a more active position in working to attract businesses to this community. It's not been a part of our strategic plan specifically. I know that in the past, Chris has taken the stance that Philomath is open for business, but it's going to be hard to attract a grocery store. We've lost 100 jobs. So that would be my top priority, I think.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Sure.
Just I know, like, I was talking to Chris a little bit about some of the businesses that have come, but I think maybe I would add like and retain, because I think sometimes what Philomath gets into is like small businesses come here and grow, and then they grow fast enough that they need someone else to be, and we aren't prepared to meet their growing needs, and so then they leave. And so I think that if we could get rid of like, because I would hate to have businesses come here and then just grow big enough that they go away. If there's some way we can, or you need to stay here. But yeah, but I totally agree on that.
I just wanted to pile on to the comment. It seems like we're getting ready to stand up a Housing and Economic Development Committee that should specifically address both the issues raised by Councilor Andrade and the issues raised by you guys. So I don't mind putting in a strategic plan, but it seems like we're going down that road.
Question for the city manager. My assumption is that the mill will close. You'll retain the property. Is that correct, or do you know?
I don't think that's been made clear publicly. The letter that we've all read kind of makes nice that there's a chance that maybe something might come back, but the imminent closure is definitely there. And so I've not seen anything outside of that letter than what anybody else has. So, you know, the hope would be either they retain it or they would sell it to somebody else that would create some job creation, manufacturing plant, something there. But I've not heard anything outside of that first letter that came out.
Okay, thank you. My next priority is to hire additional police officers. I know it's in the budget. I believe it should be in the budget, right? Is it in the budget?
What, police officers?
To hire additional police officers.
The current budget, not in the current budget. Next year, we haven't even talked about it yet.
Okay.
This is a future opportunity.
Okay, I think it will be, and it should be. I would like to ensure that we have at least 2 officers on duty at all times, which we do not now. And I believe it has a negative impact on our morale, our forces' morale, and I think it also prevents us from hiring female officers. Those are the top priorities. I do have one other priority. In working with the tree board, I know they would like to see a tree protection ordinance. And I would like to get feedback from the council on whether they think that's viable, whether it should.
Can you repeat that, please? The audio is a little off sometimes.
Sure. I'd like to have the input from this council as to whether they think a tree protection ordinance is viable, or or from council if it should go to the voters.
Thank you.
Additional priorities? For more?
Well, just one of mine was the same with police staffing. Just, I'm not saying we need to hire a ton of people, but I do feel like having the baseline of 2 people on duty at any time. Good thing to have. And then I think along with that on the staffing front, and I brought it up before, but just with all the new park stuff going on and the streetscapes, making sure that Public Works has the staffing they need to maintain that well. I know, like, with the couplet, there was all the pretty landscaping that then went away. And I know there's different reasons for that too, but I just want to make sure that, since people have had to deal with all the construction, I want to make sure we can keep it looking nice as long as possible, and as well as the Cochrane Park and then just our existing parks, making sure they're as best as they can be. So I didn't see anything specifically about that in here, but just sort of, I think we've been in the infrastructure mode, and I think maybe now we should shift a little bit to a maintenance mode. And I feel like Chelsea's going to tell me something.
Yes, we are proposing some additional FTE hours in budget for a position who is going to do a number of things, facility, landscaping, park related. And then we've also looked at increasing our seasonal, even though it's very difficult to hire seasonals, just really trying to increase our seasonal usage so that we can have people, especially in the summer months, to take care of the downtown area.
And that's how easy it is to accomplish your top priority. Chelsea just tells you she already did it.
Well, it is very important that everyone else
Supposedly.
buys into that.
Yes, okay. Those are 2, I feel like I had some other stuff, but I feel like it's mostly in the plan. So if I find something that isn't, I'll bring it up, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question? I believe this is the question for the city manager and for Chelsea, but I believe the city outsources some park maintenance and the city hall grounds maintenance.
The grounds maintenance we outsource to a private contractor. They do it for cheaper than we could have a full-time employee doing it, or an employee doing it. So that does get contract. That's, here in police, Public Works, and it's mostly just the flower bed area around here. The leaf pickup, that's contracted out.
But why not contract it out for the parks?
That would be a lot more money than what we're spending for just this little bit. I think the rate we get for that is discounted. It's a local landscaping company that I think gives us a really good deal because they like doing it for this full-fledged park. I mean, we could look at the pricing and see what that looks like, but I would estimate it would be a lot more money to take on the entire park.
Yeah, I was just wondering which is more cost effective to hire staff or use.
Here Beaver, who does out front for us currently. The difficulty with the parks is that it's mostly seasonal. I mean, there is some stuff during the winter. We go out by the ice storm and leaf pickup and everything else, but it is pretty seasonal. So we really do have the help, and we lean very heavily on our seasonal employees to mow and weed and do a lot of that work when we need it. You can't do a full-time employee. It's tough to find that much work for them to do during the off season when you're expecting that much work in the on season. So we've really shifted a lot out to the seasonal employees. The position Chelsea's looking at would do enough things in the downtown area, heavy season, the off season, we would have enough other work for them to do internally, that we could do that with one position, but I can't see doing that much more than that, so.
Thank you. Councilor Raymond?
I'm good.
Nope. Okay, thank you.
You did mine last time.
Councilor Johnny?
Yeah, thank you. I definitely want to prioritize the utility rate study. As Councillor Nielsen pointed out, there are a lot of people struggling everywhere and in our community as well. And I think that because we've had so many delays that regardless of if the plant gets constructed, by the end of the summer, that we need to go ahead with a utility rate study regardless, and plan into that study a way to account for the different variables. I believe someone suggested that at the last Finance and Admin Committee meeting. I don't remember who it was. And then I also, um, although um, although we are all struggling financially, or a lot of us are, I think that a gas tax should still be prioritized this year, uh, because it's not just our community who pays. Arguably, we would be having a lot of people outside of our community pay into that gas tax. And uh, funny thing, it's like they're funding what they're using, and I think it's really important to be able to help spread out those costs. Um, and then another priority of mine would be, I don't know if there's oh, sorry, going back to utility rates. In particular, I think we should add something to the strategic plan. I didn't see it in there, but I might have like accidentally skipped over it. Um, when doing the utility rate study, to also plan for water conservation, like looking into how we can encourage that. Um, and then another priority of mine is related to reviewing code and figuring out how to uh, help prevent other residential um, problems, residential development problems like Mill Pond Crossing, because regardless of who was to blame, or multiple people or whatever, the fact is that it happened. And so making sure that our code helps prevent that situation from occurring again, I think is really important. And I don't believe I saw that in the strategic plan.
Thank you. Yeah, and then I will just, okay, Councilor Warren?
I just have a clarifying question for the survey. The things that it says continue working on, are those already? I agree with most of them, all of them. I just didn't bring them up because they're already on here. Are these things that we're going to incorporate into the strategic plan if they're not already, or is that something we should be bringing up? Okay, okay, so we don't need to. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The audio isn't that great.
I was just asking for the things in the survey that were highlighted as the areas of needed improvement, if those are things we need to talk about right now, or if we're kind of already agreed to do them because they were highlighted that way in the survey.
I don't think the
Thank
council,
you.
council hasn't agreed yet, so I think that we can add those after I give my three. We can go ahead and read them off and remind everybody what they are.
Okay.
Yeah, so the three things that I would like to see, and one is to create a railroad quiet zone through the city. Because I noticed at 3 in the morning, I can't imagine living next to the tracks, and it would be really difficult. But I think that's something we should consider, not necessarily in the first, in year one or year two, but it's something that costs money and something that I think is worth considering. So exploring that idea. The next one is, I think that we should explore opportunities that exist for recruiting a grocery store. I think that would be something that would be useful. I also think that it would be good to have city staff figure out a way to assist the Mill Pond Crossing homeowners to resolve the lot line issue specifically. Those are three things I would like to see moving forward, or added to the plan at some point. So with that, I think that we should just kind of discuss some of the different ideas. Did anybody hear anything? Anybody hear things that they were pushing back against, or
maybe just a couple of comments,
Okay.
not that I'm pushing
No,
back
please.
against, but let me just point out objective 2.2.6, or, this is under support and expand economic community development.
Yeah.
It reads, develop city-owned property into mixed-use, commercial, low-income residential units. So this is specific to 14th and 20th, but it doesn't say 14th and 20th, so I can see that could be missed. The action item there is complete the environmental cleanup for 14th Street. So that is specifically listed there and helps identify, but if you didn't know where the city-owned property was, again, I recognize you couldn't see that. So maybe it's just an update to objective, but then if you look at the other action items, coordinating funding through HUD, community services, regional housing, and then the onboard developer for the project, right? So it is kind of in here already, but I think we can add those currently owned city properties to the objectives. But I believe that takes care of at least one of them that Councillor Nielsen had discussed, and it addresses one that Councillor Andrade had touched on as well.
Right. And I wanted to revisit Councilor McMorrin's comment about I would love it for you to read off those things
Okay.
too, just so we don't forget them.
So I'm just gonna read off the things that are highlighted on here as continue working on, continued focus.
Where are you on?
On the pretty thing that Chelsea made. Thank you,
Okay.
Chelsea. Just for ease of reading, but, so these are just sort of the things that came out at the top of what residents would like to see, or the things that, the top of what residents were not as satisfied with currently. So for public safety, it was enforcement of city codes and ordinances, so not necessarily the criminal stuff, but like code enforcement. And then, continued focus on economic development efforts and city communication with the public, and then continue working on city jurisdictional streets, specifically availability of safe pedestrian ways on streets and routes, and maintenance of major city streets. So I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I feel like we're all pretty on those things. And I just feel like since those came out at the top of the survey, we should make sure that if they're not already incorporated into the ties, but yeah.
Thanks for highlighting this.
Councillor.
May I ask a question? We have, I put on my list 5.1.4,
Yeah,
which is objective improvement
Yeah.
in connectivity. We don't have any action plans underneath that one.
right,
We have an
right.
objective, but
right.
so.
And I think, cause that's the one that I asked us to add like a couple months ago, so we just,
Right.
not part of the main process, but yeah, I mean, I think anything that doesn't have action items in the strategic plan, I feel like we should either make action items for it or figure out if it still needs to be there.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Can I ask one other question, maybe of Chris, or just, objective 2.2.2? I guess I didn't bring up like grocery store and stuff, cause I feel like I read that as including that, but I don't know if maybe we'd feel more comfortable like specifically calling out grocery store. Like, I guess what are we doing with 2.2.2? Is that sort of a very broad, general, like, when it says desired businesses, like, what is that?
Yeah, so that's the objective. I think you look at the action items under it on what are those
Right.
to-dos, right? So regular visits to current businesses and industries, as an ambassador, look about regulatory barriers. So, you know, reaching out to chamber. So a lot of this we're doing. It's kind of an annual basis that's noted. If you look at the next one, evaluate unrestricted funding resource opportunity as a potential new revenue stream. This is one that my staff is tired of getting the phone call on, but we've got a contractor that's got, it's a new revenue stream. It's called unrestricted funding resource. I've looked at it a little bit, but not a lot. It has to do with the tax code and how Oregon's tax code is compared to other states, and be able to set up essentially, I don't want to use the term derogatively, but essentially set up kind of shell organizations through the tax code in Oregon or city. I don't know a lot more detail on that, other than we'd be able to invite this firm to come in and talk with us. I know that they've met with a few other cities in the state. It's fairly new. So there's not a model I can point to in Oregon that's doing it. But it's a potential revenue stream, and I think it's worth looking at and saying thumbs up or thumbs down. So that's the current action item. If we wanted to add the action item in there, I think if we're talking grocery store, that would be an appropriate place to do it. If we want to target a specific industry, then let's say that we want to target a specific industry or a specific type of store. I will say we did have this in the strategic plan at one point to try to woo a grocery store in, and eventually we took it out because it was like, we've done a lot of action items, we're not getting results, do you want me to keep spending time on this? And the council said, let's just keep doing more general things until we're ready for it. But so wants to focus there again, then yeah, I think we put it back in. That'd be a good place to put it.
And on that topic, I just think it's important just to understand what mechanisms exist that we actually might accomplish that goal.
So I think Councilor Nelson can speak to that. She's done some legwork there, so I don't want to steal any thunder, but Councilor Nelson, maybe you want to kind of share steps that you've taken, some outreach you've done, and you and I have talked about a little bit that I did after you've taken some first steps and I made some follow-ups, so maybe you could kind of share that.
So I just did a lot of emailing to various corporations that had grocery stores in Oregon, and most did not respond. But Winco was one that responded with we are currently, growing our business in the state of Oregon and would be open to considerate the need for a store in your community, and if there's enough community interest in having a grocery store in your area. And so I took that as a encouragement for us to show interest in having a grocery store. And what their recommendation was well, if you can have anyone that will be willing to go on our site to explain that they are willing and anxious to have a store in their area. And I sent some statistics to them about how, the highways that come through in the neighboring cities, and trying to plug that was just a population of Philomath that would utilize a grocery store, that there was outlying cities and communities and traffic going from the coast inland and right through town. And in fact, Chris, you just forwarded an email from Winco. Did we not get one recently?
I got an auto reply from one, so I went on as an interested party and said, love to have a nude store and why. Gave some financial information, how much my family spends on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and so I'd love to have you. And then I got an auto-generated reply back, and it was, again, a very friendly, hey, thank you so much for reaching out to us. These emails get distributed or forwarded on to our VP of real estate, and they look at whatever. So anyway, it was just, it was very positive. It definitely was like, hey, thanks, we'll get back to you. It was pretty positive, which, could have just been good customer service that Winco does, or it could have been they are sincerely looking at all communities. I don't want that to take we're the only ones getting that auto reply. Everybody who says they want a store is getting that friendly auto reply. But, the process, they have a very easy process to make a submittal to show interest. And it comes with a very nice auto reply saying, thank you for your submittal. And we do know, in talking to the person there, I will say, after Teresa had sent this to me the first time, I called the Winco and talked to the corporate office and said, I don't want to put this out to our residents if it's not going to go anywhere, right? Like, I don't want to put kind of this false hope out there. Like, everybody do this, and they're going to say, oh yeah, we don't look at these, right? And so I said, is this a real thing? And I was assured, yes, absolutely. These accumulate and they get forwarded on, and they do look at those, and it's a consideration when they're looking at new locations. That was enough for me to say, hey, Teresa, I think we may have onto something. Let's talk about it. And then my next outreach was to a grocery chain that I'm familiar with, that's in a small community. They only have 3 locations, so it's not a big, huge chain. They have 3 locations in Oregon. It started in Redmond. I think it started.
Raise?
Something smaller than Redmond, though. It started in.
No.
Anyway, it started east of the
John Day?
Cascades.
John Day.
John Day. Yep, John Day.
Started in John Day. The other one's that's technically a Coos Bay address. It's just south of Glen Eden. And then the third one, I'm going to forget too. Anyway, so Chester's Market is what it's called. So smaller in scale. I believe I believe at one point he taglined it that it was like an Albertsons affiliation of some sort. But they have three. The gentleman I talked to is the manager at the Coos Bay location. The owner was in the store at the time. Hey, Bill, Philomath wants a Chester's. Yeah, great. Have him reach out to me. We're not necessarily looking to expand right now, but if the right thing came along, yeah, let's hear from you. So, again, very friendly, very open. It wasn't, yeah, no, we're not growing, which is what we heard from a lot of places 4 years ago. So, there's at least two opportunities. As a little bit of background information of at least a few that seem receptive. And again, if it was a priority of the council, I can devote some time there. But if the council's like, spend your time on other stuff, I just didn't want to go too far down the path of trying to recruit a grocery store without the council knowing what was going on.
And can I just interject one more thing? Winco has smaller versions of their store. It's like a miniature Winco called a Waremart. And that is where the growth has been, looking at the growth of Winco in Oregon, Waremarts are more popular new buildings for Winco rather than the large. So we're right in the proximity of what they're looking to do. They have one going into Kaiser that's being built currently, I believe. The one in Independence isn't really that old. So we're right, if we can just convince them that we're the right niche for them, that it's a little smaller version of the Winco. So I think it's hopeful. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was a high priority on the surveys as well, that we had many individuals that were wanting, and in talking to people, now that we have that Facebook piece going around and publicity on the window, people are really interested in having a store in our town.
Would it be possible to have a representative from Winco or Custer? Knows what they would need.
My only concern about doing something like that is inviting I think it's a problem when we invite a specific, or we're trying to recruit a specific brand or chain. I feel like grocery store more generally is a great idea. I think recruiting a Winco seems like that's a problem. You know what I mean? Or versus just a grocery more generally.
Well, in response, and just to respond to that, if no one shows interest in coming to Philomath, then hello, so in contacting the companies, Fred Meyer, Safeway, there's a few others. No interest. So if we put it out there, will someone come? Come to the promised land.
That's why I was
then-
suggesting that we look at
so,
mechanisms for what
yeah.
exists, or for
Yeah.
just to encourage a grocery.
Yeah.
That's just my
Not for
concern, is
whatever.
that do we invite Chester's, and do we have to invite both? And then do we have to?
I think we'd send the invitation and couch it as, what is a grocery store looking for when they're determining, new location? And some of that may be trade secret stuff. They don't necessarily want to tell us what they're looking for and all that. So I don't know that we would glean a lot from it, honestly. I think they would have a hard time coming in telling us, if you meet these benchmarks, then you're good, and we'll look at you. The work I did on this previously, that was not information they were willing to share with me. It was all about me giving them information about us and them saying, we'll put this in our black box and we'll make a decision, and then we wouldn't hear back that we were chosen or met the criteria, whatever it was. So,
But wouldn't it be worthwhile hearing, it would be worthwhile to me to hear what was it that attracted them to other locations? What made them decide to open a store in Independence, for example?
if not a grocery chain itself, I'm sure there's experts out there we could talk to that are doing placement and commercial real estate that could give us some ins if we wanted some additional insight. I think those experts are out there that aren't tied to a specific store or specific brand.
Okay.
So,
That'd be cool.
again, if the council wants to prioritize that, we can put it in there and then prioritize it on where it's going to go and how important it is.
In general, do people thumbs up on including it in strategic plan?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, done. Okay. And then, so sounds like 14th Street properties, we're all in agreement that that's already pretty much in the plan. We're looking at affordable housing with it's in the plan. The second playground is City Park. Like the park committee is on top of that and has some priorities. Do we need to specify that or just?
Yeah, we added the item to 4.3.2. That 4.3.2 has been there, but we did update that project list based off of kind of what's been coming out of the park advisory board.
Excellent. And then this evening we've heard one comment against and one comment for gas tax. Is this something we should explore, the benefits or the reasons that we'd want it rather than mechanism?
I get, this might be what we would answer if we talked about it, so I don't know if there is an answer, but do we know what we were thinking that money would go towards? Would that be like streets?
Or
or
streets.
Okay.
Street maintenance.
And do we have any choice in that, or it has to do that?
I believe was,
And I guess my only thing about the gas tax is just like, feels like we missed the boat a little bit. Like, I mean, statewide gas tax revenues are like drastically declining, and ODOT is scared because they are out of money. So I think we can.
It's just the most ridiculous thing.
So I just think if we're gonna do it, we shouldn't like then count on that money every year. Like, it will probably decline. So just like if we are going to institute a new gas tax, that shouldn't be like oh great, this will solve all of our street maintenance issues, because it won't.
Councilor Lehman?
First, there's only like, I know of one electric vehicle charging station this side of Corvallis until you get to the ocean.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about people not buying gas around here. But I really do think that even if you do like 3 cents a gallon or whatever, and it ends up contributing $20,000 or $30,000 a year, that's just one more project per year that we can do that we won't be able to.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line to me, that way I look at it. And I don't think that 3 cents a gallon or 2 cents a gallon or whatever we come up to is going to be the difference between someone being able to fill up their car or not. But I also agree that out of town people will be buying at least some of that.
I think the only thing is just, it's not about just electric vehicles, just the cars have gotten way more efficient than they used to be
Sure.
in general. So like,
Yeah.
even if you are still driving all the time in a gas powered vehicle, you're getting like 40 miles a gallon as opposed to 15 miles a gallon. So
And
you
I
can
think
buy
that a
like,
lot of people that commute
Yeah.
from Portland to Salem are just like that.
right,
And
right.
almost nobody who commutes from Blodgett to Philomath is like that.
Sure.
so in the strategic plan, it's just consider the establishment of it. So I think it's a matter of timing and then what we heard earlier was, is this the appropriate time to be talking about a gas tax? Pros and cons, getting public input, or do we push that off now or not? So, to me, it's not the benefits or, maybe political cost of a gas tax. It's, do we talk about it this year? Do we talk about 24, 25? Or a year or two to talk about, so.
Well, and wouldn't it have to go to a vote?
Yeah.
It would, yeah, so again, timing is
Right.
now the appropriate time to look at it, but even the exploration of what do we want to do or not could still result in, yes, we wanna do it, but we're gonna put it off a year or two. It just matter when you wanna have the conversation.
And then if we
2035.
if we were to have a conversation in March, April, May about this topic, would that give us sufficient time to get it on the ballot in November?
No, it would be next year.
Yeah, okay. So. Okay.
Wait, we talked about it in May? It's
It's gotta be in by August,
Right.
so it depends on how much public outreach you wanna do ahead of time or whatever. I mean, in my mind, that's a 6-month conversation, not a 2-month conversation, if you're only meeting once a month or once every other month.
Councilor Andrade?
I think that if we don't talk about this now, it's not whatever. If we are able to, okay, let's say we talk about it and we agree that we would like to implement a gas tax and the public agrees, um, we're going to start getting money, right? With inflation, if we put off this conversation any longer, it's not going to be nearly as impactful as it would be in supplementing um, our, our funds that we use for these street projects anyway. I think the time is now to talk about it because even if we don't get it in time for this, even if we decide to go with a gas tax and to have it in to submitted for the vote in the fall, like we're just that much closer to being able to do it the next time we have the opportunity to. And we we clearly need to have additional funds, and this is just one of the many ways in which we can help um, supplement, I guess.
Thank you. Counselor Nielsen?
We have our objective 1.3.2, which is town hall meeting on one of our action items. I think it's nice to have topics that could be a town hall meeting discussion. And to me personally, I think this gas tax would be an appropriate one to bring to something like that as one of the options of what we could discuss.
Good idea.
And so,
Do we
agree.
need to make a motion to that?
We're not making decisions in work session, but
Oh,
I
sorry.
do think that I think it's worthy having a conversation. I think it's worthy to explore the ideas more. So, yeah, I think it's good to keep it in the strategic plan. Personally. Oh,
To clarify, will we need to make a motion for that in the meeting, or is that something that we by consensus add?
yeah, I don't think we'd have to have a motion on that topic. I think that it's a fine idea unless someone else comes up with another one.
I think Chris is just kind of taking all these notes down, and then we'll approve the actual strategic plan at a later meeting, but right, it's just us talking and Chris taking notes for that to put into the strategic plan.
What I'm hearing is we're gonna keep it on here and we're gonna keep it for the 24-25 fiscal year, then we can have discussion about when we wanna have the town hall meeting.
Yep.
To me, that's going to Public Works Committee, then I'll probably either Public Works or Admin Finance can look at it, but yes, it'll be a timing on both of those.
Thank you for clarifying.
And may I ask a question? Are we actually adding an action item to the 5.1.4, that pedestrian connectivity? Is that on the list of to-dos? It's 5.1.4, objective improve pedestrian connectivity in the city. One doesn't have an action item. Like one?
I'm gonna go down this list
Okay.
and try to be organized.
Okay.
If that's okay. So on water conservation, Christine talked briefly about talking about water conservation and water conservation.
Yeah, and I believe I might have missed that. I tried to have everything that's in the draft capital improvement plan move forward into here, and that is what I missed. So that is in our capital improvement plan, I believe, for the 24-25.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's in for
Sorry, can you
24-25, so
please repeat that? The audio keeps going out, and I noticed this on YouTube too.
next year.
24, 25.
Right. So it's in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 24-25 to update the city water conservation plan. So I just need to add that in here as an action item.
Yep.
Clarifying question on that. Does that include how we set utility rates? The water conservation plan? I didn't get a chance to take a look at it after our last finance and admin meeting.
I don't believe that's included in water conservation plan, setting utility rates.
Because Yeah, I would, because I think that should specifically be in the like RFP is like, we want to also, um, set rates that encourage water conservation. Um, so like once you hit a certain amount of water usage, your rate goes up per unit.
I think the water conservation plan will come up with different strategies for water conservation more generally. And that
Agreed.
probably would be in there, so I don't think we need to specify that.
Mm,
Councilor McMorrin, do you have your hand up?
I disagree.
Actually,
Oh, sorry.
I'm good with either one.
I believe there's pros and cons to tying water conservation to utility rates. And that will be a good discussion to have once we've got a utility feasibility study in front of us. And
Agreed.
it's something that the consultant can look at. So I wouldn't want to tilt the hand one way or another by directing them to implement something. I think it would be an option that we would have them prepare for us to look at and consider.
To clarify, that's more or less what I was hoping for was like proposing for that to be one of the options.
Yeah. And then, so moving on to Councilor Causey, regarding Mill Pond Crossing code revision, Chris, were there specific opportunities of things in the code that we would want to consider revising to prevent or to help avoid things like Mill Pond Crossing would happen?
We've brought some language out of the Public Works design standards into the draft code update for commercial developments specific to temporary occupancies and providing security in order for those temporary occupancies to be allowed. I can't say that it would have had a direct impact on anything in Mill Pond Crossing, but it could have had an impact, and it would definitely make it more clear to developers and property owners prior to development of what the city standards are for getting occupancy. So that is a code change that's been implemented. It hasn't been adopted yet. The planning commission is still going through that. That's one of those changes that's on the table right now that's been discussed. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on what caused Mill Pond Crossing because that list is long, and I don't know that it's.
But the planning commission is looking at code revisions right now, and we're going through that whole process.
Yes.
That's part of what the city's doing right now.
Yeah.
Councilor Causey.
Would it be appropriate or not for our code to require, knowing that we've had logging industry here for a long time, to require methane testing, soil testing prior to construction?
So our current code requires that any environmental testing that the planning official deems necessary be completed. We did that with Mill Pond Crossing. They tested for all environmental hazards. They provided a long report on everything that was identified on the project.
Except that
It didn't include methane. That's something that the state has now caught up on. So DEQ is now looking at this, and going forward, that's something that will be looked at and required by the state in these reports. So I don't think there's anything necessary that our code that's being done at a much higher level now, that it's required for any of these subdivisions that are going into industrial properties, not just Philomath.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilor
Andrade?
Thank you for the updates on that. I'm really glad that something is being done about it. Also, on that note, I know I've brought up before looking into when zoning changes regarding any brownfields and potentially changing any of those to like industrial as opposed to allowing for residential development on them, just to help as that to just like to help prevent that kind of thing from happening, especially for someone if we get another developer who thinks that they can develop housing on that land, but has never developed a brownfield before.
Yeah, so that language got adopted into our annexation criteria, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And it's in the development criteria for required studies to be done prior to development as part of the pre-application process. So I believe we're on strong footing there for requiring property owners to provide us proof that the property is safe to develop on.
Okay, thank you.
So, and now we're starting to get short on time, but want to continue going through this in an order fashion. Councilor Causey brought up business recruitment and retention, or make it more retention. Is this something that the city should be doing, like more practically? I know we specified the specify grocery store, but in general. Seems like it's a really big thing to me. Like, I love the idea of encouraging.
Yeah.
I love the idea of encouraging entrepreneurship, but I think we could target specific businesses like a grocery store potentially. But we support the chamber.
Well, so we are very active with rural economic why am I forgetting that? Alliance, thank you, Alliance. Thanks. Real, they've got an updated strategic plan. There's things that they're doing. That's where the money funnels through to go to Oregon Rain to support our Rain Catalyst. And so, those are state grants that funnel to that group that we pass on to Rain, so that Rain is active in our community. So that does happen. I mean, my deflection a little bit here is that when you start getting economic development, I mean, that's a whole nother profession and it's a whole nother department. And it is not typically something that you're going to find in a city of 3 to 5 to 6,000 people. When you get up into, Statons and Monmouths and Independence, when you get in that 10 and 15 and 20 and 30,000 population, you have a little bit more money coming in and you can separate those departments out. Right now, that falls under the city manager department. I mean, one other thing that I do see, it is the reason that I wanted to start this new committee, which we've been getting a lot of interest and a lot of applications in, that will stand up this committee to help me with some of that work. And this is not going to be an advising committee. This is going to be a committee that I'm going to ask and task to do things like, can you make contact? Can you make some phone calls? Can you do some outreach? Because I don't have the time or capacity to do all of the things I would like to do for economic development. And so there's always more that you can do in economic development. It is a hard one to measure because I can't tell you the amount of, warm referrals are going to end up with actual job creation or additional retail space. But yet there's professionals that will work in that industry for years. And you ask them, what are the results of what you've done? And it's hard for them to even put a finger on all of the things that they've done because you don't know 1 or 2 successes they've had, but you'll say, wow, so that's been your salary and these are the successes, but you don't know about all the other stuff that's still in the works and may eventually come to fruition. So we can, I guess I would say I can spend a lot of time and a lot of energy on economic development, and I don't know that it's necessarily my best use of my time because you really just don't know. So I think that we're supporting Oregon, the Rural Economic Alliance. We're supporting Oregon Rain. We'll have a new committee formed up to do specific things. I mean, there's a number of things under support and expand economic community development. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 objectives. I think we're doing a lot to support and sustain and encourage. We've formed the enterprise zone. There's a lot of things we have done to be welcoming. So I'm not saying there isn't more we can do. I'm just, I guess, putting caution out there that there is only so much that we can do with what we have for staffing and availability and time.
Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on this. I think that the LID worked perfectly out on Landmark Drive. That we put in access to resources and utilities, and then lo and behold, a new company sprang up, and assuming that some of those people that work there actually live here, I don't know for sure, but let's just assume that there's new jobs in our community, and I see the city being able to participate on that level, absolutely. But it takes the cooperation of the landowner and then business owners to, it's like you can't legislate economic development. You just can't do it. So I don't know that we need to dedicate a lot of our resources to it, but I do believe that we need to be ready to strike when the iron's hot, so to speak, and be willing to do things like the local improvement district and the enterprise zone and things like that to take advantage of opportunities that come up. And I kind of feel this way about the grocery store too. We can all want really hard, but we're not changing the demographics of our city. And the fact is, there's a Safeway 4 miles away, and there's only 5,000 people that live here. So there's been grocery stores here before. They're not here anymore. There's a reason for that. And I know we have more people now than we did when they went out of business. But I just feel like we can put a lot of effort and energy into that specific task. And until we get to 10,000 people, it doesn't matter, in my personal opinion. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I think going off of what Chris was saying, I think I'm comfortable. I feel like creating the committee, I think, is all we should do right now, because otherwise what's the point of the committee? Like, I feel like the point of the committee is to come to us in 6 months, a year, or whatever, and recommend additional things for us to do, but I don't think we should jump the gun on that and start coming up with a bunch of recommendations on our own if we have this whole committee. And we do have that 2.2.2, which is sort of a broader, just encourage, development and expansion of desired businesses. So it's not like we aren't thinking about it, but I think what Chris said is right, of like, and what Matt said of just like, as things come up, we'll take advantage of them, but we don't need to come up with some huge systemic change just at this moment.
Are you feeling like we're doing some good stuff?
Yes, I do.
I agree with you about the mill though, but I mean, do we want to go see if there's another forest products company that wants to try and buy that from Interfor and open it back? I mean, what can,
Become a broker.
right, yeah, I don't think we can.
I heard Councilmember
that part.
Maynard's investing.
Yeah, we're going halvesies on the mill.
And I guess I can point to a number of things that we've done that are pretty progressive for a community our size. I mean, we've got a grant from the state to build a water and a water line loop and a sidewalk for the Northernwood property that went in. That's something we didn't have to do. But they came to us like, hey, this is a project, we need some help. And it was brainstorming and figured out, it's like, hey, this program's out there. Hey, what about this? And the council agreed, yeah, we'll go ahead and take that grant on. And Mike's been working on administration and reporting on it and all that. We don't have to do that. It's extra work for staff, but yet it's helping this local business out. There's definitely opportunities for us to partner, and I'm not saying we don't partner, but we can't be the cows. Like, we're not going to open up a grocery store, right? Like, I mean, nobody's suggesting that, but there is a line between the free market and the government, and I think our role is to set the stage. The conversation we had in the grocery store earlier, that I'll share briefly, is if Winco, to use that name, if Winco came to me tomorrow and said, hey, we'd like to build in your community, I don't have a piece of property zoned commercial big enough to put a Winco or a Walmart or a Chester's or whoever. Where would they go? Look at our zoning right now. So we've got a draft zoning map out there that looks at some of our larger industrial sites and recommends that we convert those into commercial sites. I'm not anticipating the planning commission is going to get through that till the end of the year, because we're looking at all of the underlying development code that feeds into that zoning picture. And until we know the development code, it doesn't make sense to put the zoning out there, because people, you rezone that to C3 regional commercial. What does that mean? Well, we don't know. We didn't write the code on it yet. So we have to write the code for the zoning to make sense. But we have in draft mode this concept in our mind of a regional commercial zone that's going to be for these kind of larger, boxier type stores that require more parking space, more added amenities, transit stops, all of these things. We don't have the zoning today to even welcome a grocery store into town. So we're getting there, right? Like it just takes some time. We're getting to that point, but we're just not there today. And as we grow and as we rezone property, and we are definitely forward looking to be available for that, whether it be a grocery store or it be a Freddy's or heaven forbid a clothing store, and children's clothing might want to come to town. We can buy shoes in this town for our kids. That'd be great too, right? So there's a lot of that. We just don't have the current zoning for it yet, but we're working on it. Soft Star is great. It is in town. I should have discounted. I have 7 kids at home and I can't afford it. So.
Okay, well, thank you for those thoughts and comments there. Tree protection ordinance. Is that something we should explore or have? Parks? No, I think it's in
You
there.
added it at the last round of this.
Got it. What do people think about exploring the idea of a railroad quiet zone?
I like it. I'm skeptical that we would be able to pull it off. Just, I looked into it a little bit too, and I know at work, my boss used to represent downtown Portland, and they've been working for like 5 or 6 years to get a railroad quiet zone in downtown Portland, with the like full support of like the city of Portland, and they couldn't even get it done. So I think we should. Well, yes, and I'm not. I think we should look into it. I just think we should all be prepared for the uphill battle we will be fighting. Because I think there's also some pieces of it that we might not find pleasant. Like I think we have to clear, like it has to be a lot more visibility on crossings. Like it might mean tearing down a ton of trees around crossings. It's just I think we should, but I like the idea because I live literally like 20 feet from the train tracks, so I would appreciate it. But yeah.
What does that entail anyway?
I think exploring it would tell us what it would entail. All I know is you need four-way gates on both sides, but there may be a lot of other things I don't know about. So that requires money.
You mean just so they don't have to ding the bell every time they
So
go
they don't
through a crossing?
The horn.
Yeah. Well, ding the bell or.
It's very different.
The bell has
when
to
you're
occur,
straight.
I understand. But the horn does not.
Yeah, and it might even have to go through like the FRA or something too. It's kind of it's kind of
Big deal.
ridiculous, but yeah.
Should we have that or not?
That seems like a marlin, and we gotta pan this big.
I think we
Exploring it,
can send a couple emails. I think that's but just with an understanding of the
We find out it's not possible.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I would rather not put it on as an objective or as a, I just think that, I don't know. My experience the little experience I have in government, I think that's a battle we're not gonna win. Cost
Like I
wise.
said, it did happen in Millersburg and Springfield and Eugene. Yes.
I mean, we could put it in and just keep it kind of lower priority. I mean, just intentionally bump it out a couple of years. I mean, if we get ahead on stuff and we're looking for something to do, there it is. But if we don't get to it for a couple of years, we haven't got any skin off of our nose either.
Something worth knowing is an option. So.
Counselor Dudley's either giving a thumbs up or is he
Or wave.
question?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't think it should be prioritized for this fiscal year. I think like, if you're passionate about it, I would love to hear the research you come up with. But I think, that it should be pushed out. We have a lot of other stuff going on right now.
And then last thing on the list is having staff assist the Mill Pond Crossing residents with their lot line issues, trying to get that done.
They might want a little more context with that one. You and I have had a few conversations.
Well, I know that, so there's, I've been in touch with all the landowners. I think there's 16 of them. As of 3 months ago, there's a few that have not done anything. And all the other landowners are waiting for those few to actually do their part in order to actually move all of it forward. And so it's not necessarily on any it's not necessarily on, it's not on the city, it's not on a lot of the landowners, it's just like, there's just some things that need to be pushed forward. And, some of them are intimidated, some of them are confused, they feel like they don't have information, they don't feel very motivated. It's a lot of different things. And it's complicated, but everybody's paying the price. Councilman Warren?
I guess if you can just offer any more context for what you're envisioning, because my understanding is like Chris was already contacting them and trying to, so like when you say staff support, like is it more than that or just sort of formalizing that?
One of the, and again, I don't want to, anybody think that we've gotten way out in front of this. We've had some very preliminary conversations about what could the city do to help, because it's frustrating
Yeah.
for everybody involved. And when I say everybody, I include Mr. Miller. It's frustrating, you know, we try to get this through as well. So in the conversations preliminary we've had, the scenario we painted was, what if we get to where everything in phase 1, 2, and 2B is done, except for the lot line adjustments, and Mr. Miller is ready to move forward with phase 3 and get some infrastructure in place, which we need to happen, get some new housing in, which we need to happen, and all these things, but yet we're still waiting on 2 or 3 property owners that haven't done lot line adjustments yet. So the thought was, what if we pulled the money that would be necessary to do that, and he put all that money in an escrow account that the city had access to, and the city could use that as motivation to tell people, you've got till X date to get it done. We have the funding that you need to make it happen. We have the funding that you need to make you whole on the loss of property at the agreed price that everybody's agreed to. The money is sitting here, you've got X number of days to get it done, and if it's not done, X, right? There's a civil penalty, there's whatever it needs to be, but that way people can move forward with that outside of everybody go through it. We're still not gonna be able to record the new plat until everybody has got it done. But it allows for that contact to go through the city through an escrow account that we have access to funds for, rather than waiting on the developer to make sure before we're spending money on individual appraisals or whatever it might be. So I don't know that it's a silver bullet that says, hey, we're just gonna do this to solve it. If that's the case, we'd have probably done something like this 6 months or a year ago. But it's an option that might work better than what we're doing now, which is frankly not worked yet. So that's an option.
I know, I've tried taking a very hands-on approach, and I just kind of, it's really hard, it's really frustrating, just like, what tools do we have?
So can you give us an idea of why the people aren't following through?
I think they're intimidated, they don't know the process, they're confused, they don't want to spend time on it, it's not a priority for them.
They don't make it, they're not losing any property, so they're not actually, some of the space is so small and so marginal, it's like, it's not worth my time. I mean, again, I've said this for a year now, if it helps you for the city to issue a fine or notice of a potential fine to get your lender or whoever to move on this, then I'm more than happy to provide that. I wouldn't necessarily collect on it, but if you need me to cite you because you're in opposition to your lender and say, hey, I'm getting cited unless we get this fixed, you need to process this. Well, the same could be said for the homeowner themselves. Like, we'll cite the homeowner, say, hey, if this isn't done, we're gonna cite you. The money's all sitting here to do it. We need you to fill out this paperwork and take care of it with your lender, and you've got a month or you've got 2 months. So, you know, you don't like being the bad guy, but it's like, at what point is everybody else suffering because of a few people that aren't moving forward? And yet we blame the developer, or we blame the city, or we blame everybody else for the problem, and literally some people are just not engaged. Because they don't have anything to gain, they don't have anything to lose. And the ones that have the most to gain are most engaged, and the ones that have most to lose are most engaged. It's the ones in the middle, yeah, there's just no motivation there. Yeah, and there's no tool to engage them.
Councilman Andrade?
Thank you for asking that question, Councilor Lehman. What I heard was, I think that these were the reasons why. Were those reasons that they gave to you when speaking with them, or was that just kind of the vibe that you got while talking with them?
Oh. Yeah, I talked with all, I've talked with 2 out of the 3 that haven't done anything. I mean, I got emails from everybody else. But yeah,
Because I wonder if it would be better to try. I don't know. If they have concerns about, you know, um, concerns about what might happen if they do this, and then Mr. Miller continues developing and some problem isn't addressed, that they're using it as leverage so that their issues get taken care of. Like
I
I
don't
want to
think that
make
was the
sure that
case.
that's not what you think it was happening.
No, not in this. No, not at all. Actually, I don't think at
Okay.
all.
Okay. Because that's been my main concern, is like that certain property owners that might not have their issue taken care of and therefore don't want to sign until it has been taken care of. So,
And actually, I found exactly the opposite. Some of those that I thought were maybe feeling that way said that they were ready tomorrow to sign the papers tomorrow. But
okay.
others that just weren't, they just didn't have anything invested in it. They're like, I'm happy. There's nothing wrong with my situation. Why
Mhm.
do I need to spend my time calling the bank and dealing with all that? And like, and plus I'm confused. I don't know what I need. I don't know what I need to do.
Can the
So
city offer to give help with that,
yes,
of like if you're
we have,
confused?
we have.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I've tried a very hands-on approach. I'm like, you tell me, I'll come down to your house. Like, what do you need from us? We can go down to City Hall. You need a notary? We've got them. I would just like to see, I just like to continue working to get this situation resolved as soon as possible.
What?
Notaries.
Several notaries.
Yes, we do.
So what are we actually discussing putting in the strategic plan? Because
All I'm saying is getting it into strategic plan. We can put staff time towards this, that the city can put resources towards getting this issue resolved, or that we should.
I'm good with that. I think the only thing that before we start issuing like citations or like any sort of punishment, I would want that to come back to us. But so
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Absolutely. This is just making it a priority.
Okay.
Hi, Brett. Are we all okay with that? Okay.
Just be theme 4, addressing affordable housing in Philomath. Is that where we're looking, or do we want to do a separate goal?
I'm open to whatever you decide. So great. With that, I think we can.
Well, I just wanted.
I'm sorry. The survey and stuff.
Well, yeah, and did we want to do anything about like police and public works staffing?
I thought that that's all in process now.
I think we're planning to try to add an additional officer if we got that.
Finance Admin Committee had that discussion and voted in favor of that moving forward to the city council for consideration. I think Councilor Causey spoke to a need there that was shared from the staff standpoint. There's a safety component to it. Difficult one, honestly, because we can't point to an increase in crime and we need an officer to reduce the crime rate. I think what we can point to is issue and, quite frankly, the lack of traffic enforcement. And when an officer calls in sick and an officer's already out on vacation, or an officer's having a baby and another officer can't come in because they busted their toe, when you're down and the calls are coming in for service, you're not out doing traffic enforcement, and our traffic enforcement suffers for it. And our reputation of being a speed trap is long gone. It's not the case anymore, and I think it's direct result of not having the staff committed to doing traffic enforcement. Now, is that just policing in general? Is that a mindset? Is that all those things? It is. I can tell you that 10 years ago, we shifted from being traffic enforcement to being reducing crime. and we have been very successful at reducing crime, but it's come at the expense of the traffic enforcement and just being out there. And I'm not talking number of citations, I'm talking about how many hours a day are as an officer available to be out on the street doing traffic enforcement. That number has decreased substantially. And it's because we have increased the amount of hours that we're doing active police enforcement, active police investigations, and all of that work. Now, what will shift with the new chief compared to our current chief and the new chief coming in and mindset and what will that work? I don't know, but I can tell you the new chief coming in is adamant that he feels like we need a new officer for the safety of the officers. The number of times that we have an officer on duty without backup is too high for his comfort level, and that speaks volumes to me. Frankly, it was all I really needed to hear. So I'd like to recommend that we do that. If consensus here tonight can get us there, then we'll add it in the budget. We can formally run it through the budget committee and go through that route. And if the budget committee approves it, then great. And if not, then we won't do it.
So we are going to take a break in 2 minutes, just to be clear. Councilor Lehman?
So two quick things then. First, the question that popped in my mind is, can we somehow tie a new officer into like emergency preparedness or something like that, and looking at different ways to fund that position, like if they could be the emergency preparedness officer, but also write parking tickets and stuff on the side. And then the second one is, I know we talked about this a while ago, but it seems like we could automate some of the traffic enforcement given the changes in our legislative side of things. So just saying that could be in a way to alleviate some of that pressure too.
Thank you. Councilor Andrade, you have 1 minute.
Thanks. The question I had, those are great questions, Councilor Lehman. I would be interested in hearing about those too. My question is, since it's a safety thing, what do the numbers look like if we were to contract with the county for one officer? Can we consider that? I would assume it would be a lot cheaper than hiring a full officer when we don't necessarily have funds that we want to, that we need budgeted elsewhere, basically.
I could find out. My first impression is the county doesn't have the staffing to back us up currently. So they would be looking to hire an additional officer, and then we're going to be paying probably even more because a Benton County officer gets paid more than what we pay. So,
okay. Or if we contracted with someone else, I have no idea. The state, I don't know what that looks like. Just any option.
yeah, I think we look into it more. I mean, at this point, unless I hear otherwise, I'm going to roll this into the proposed budget, and we can have ongoing conversations when we get to the budget committee about the increased staff.
Well, thank you. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break before the council meeting. So we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session.
It's automated.
How are you?